What up, guys, and welcome to another Plays and Updates video where I go over what is hot in the market, what I'm personally paying attention to. Now, as always, this is not financial advice, and this is just my personal opinions and plays. And if you want to know how I actually stay on top of all of these different ecosystems all the time, definitely join our Discord in the description. Right now, we're doing 1 week free trial passes where you can actually get access to our alpha group that covers all of this different information I'm about to cover today completely for free, so you can try it out. But yeah, guys, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the first thing we're going to cover is the injective ecosystem, and that's where I've been spending a lot of my time recently, simply because there's a lot of new protocols that are going to be coming out, and I see injective as one of those blockchains that could have a Solana-like run for this next bull cycle. Now, I've been talking about Dojoswap forever now. We actually had gotten into this before their actual mainnet had released, when they were doing all of this different points farming, and I even made a couple of videos on it as well. Now, as far as my play with Dojoswap, it has been going on an absolute crazy run, guys. They came out with their sushi token just a few days ago that went all the way from $150 to $950, and now it's sitting at around $865. They also have their main dojo token sitting at around 0.022, which is at its all-time high, and even some of the other tokens they launched, such as KJ, is sitting near or at an all-time high, as well as their roll token has also seen some love recently. So the whole entire dojo ecosystem has been blowing up, and I have mostly been doing their different yield farms, especially using Ninja Vault, where I don't have to constantly claim and compound every single day. Now, that being said, I do think it's a little too hot right now, and today I actually sold off a lot of my different positions within Dojoswap. I'll be looking to buy back in a later date, but I just think the market is really hot for the dojo ecosystem, and we have a lot of new projects coming out that I'll briefly cover in this video that could pull some of that liquidity. Now, one of the reasons I think it has been pumping so much is not only has this team been delivering at a really high level, but at the same time, they have constantly been reducing their emissions. So the amount of new tokens coming in has constantly been going down, but you have a lot more new people finding out about Injective, about Dojoswap, and getting involved. And especially with their new sushi token that launched on their launchpad, I think with all of the ERC 404 stuff happening over on Ethereum, it really grabbed a lot of interest for this being the first use case of that on Injective. And what's really funny, and for people that actually own Jelly Cubes, my alpha group project, we're actually the first project to do something like this, but we did it on Cardano, and we've been out with that for over 5-6 months now. So it's cool to see this sort of idea come out on other chains, and it's one of the reasons I felt bullish and pretty much full sent when it came to the sushi token. One of the really interesting things, guys, about this sushi token as well is they are able, through their Dojoswap platform, to give a very high APR to people that are providing liquidity for their sushi and dojo pair, which makes the sushi actually valuable, because if dojo can continue performing as a DEX and pretty much this all-in-one platform that they're building, they can constantly give a high yield to these sushi holders. So yeah, very interesting stuff overall. I think it's a little hot right now, so I sold a lot of my position. I'll be looking to buy back in the future because I still think it's early for Dojoswap, but just a little bit too hot for me right now. And when it comes to actually buying the sushi token, I have to get a little bit more information about what they plan to do with it, because right now it's just a lot of hype and speculation. The next thing that I have been doing and want to bring up again is actually Hydro Finance. Now, Hydro Finance has been having this whole entire points program when it comes to their farm. So you can get their H injective, you can then stake that H injective, and you can accumulate these points. And once again, I had covered this on a previous video. Now, this is actually ending, I believe, tomorrow, and after that, it's going to open up for you to be able to get different yields. So I would pay attention to this. Maybe there's going to be too many people already staking, and maybe the APR is low, but there might be a DeFi opportunity here, and hopefully you are actually farming these different points, because their token generation event is going to happen in March. Now, there's going to be a public sale happening on Mito Finance for their actual Hydro token, and depending on what their starting price is for that, we can determine what their circulating market cap and FDV is going to be, and that is going to determine whether or not I send into that Mito launch. Now, I'm guessing this is actually going to be a pretty big release. I'm pretty bullish on Hydro Finance, and it's important for you to stay up to date on this actual launch, and I'll be giving the full details and analysis of whether or not I think it's a good buy in our Discord channel, which once again is free if you open up a support ticket and just say you want a trial pass. Speaking of Mito Finance, they haven't come out with their token yet, but they are in the process of doing their first launch called QUNT, or I think it's actually called something different, but we're going to call this QUNT. Now, QUNT was a full whitelist sale only from the injective QUNT NFTs. Now, I think that this is going to do very well simply because of the low starting circulating market cap of something only like 40 million. So I expect the potential of this actually pulling a 50x when it goes on the liquidity pool. Now, I don't know if a lot of their holders are simply going to dump this token, but I expect anywhere from a 1 to 3 million circulating market cap, at least in the short term, to be a pretty fair evaluation for this. So a 50x would be a $2 million market cap, which I definitely think is possible for one of the largest NFT projects on Injective. If you're someone good at sniping and you can get under 1 million market cap when it actually launches on Helix and the Mito swap, definitely try to go for it. But more likely than not, if you're trying to chase this, you might buy at a market cap way too high. For me, anything under 1 million, I feel pretty safe buying, but I expect it to go over 1 million pretty quickly. I'm also keeping an eye on when Mito actually does their own token. I have a feeling they aren't going to do a sale for their token. It might just be some sort of airdrop to everyone that's staking on Injective. But I'll definitely keep you guys updated because Mito is one of the most hyped up releases happening on this chain. The next thing that I want to cover is Ninja Blaze NFT. Now, I've covered them already in a previous video, and there was a lot of speculation with this mint of where are these NFTs actually going? What are these NFTs actually going to be doing? And in their Discord, guys, they announced that all of that money that they raised is actually going to the DAO, and that DAO is controlled by these NFTs. And within this, there's going to be different votes of how to do their tokenomics, how to do their airdrop, different utilities, different ideas, how to allocate those funds. So there's a very high likelihood, in my opinion, that there is going to be a pretty significant airdrop to these actual Ninja Blaze NFTs, and there might even be other stuff voted on in the future, such as some sort of rev share. A lot of that is going to be voted on, so it's still early, but I expect these to actually do well in the longer term, and for that airdrop to potentially pay for itself. I personally had bought a decent amount of these. I'm just holding them, and for me, it doesn't really make sense to sell them until we get more information about how the airdrop is going to work. And if it's anything like the Rug Burbs NFTs or the Injective Quants or the Aliens on Injective, whenever people know there's actually going to be an airdrop, all of a sudden everyone is buying that NFT in order to get that token, simply because those tokens are so much more liquid, and it creates an opportunity for there to be a lot more price appreciation when it isn't locked down into a liquid NFTs. And that's why what Sushi is doing in the ERC404 and what we have done with Jelly way before this mainstream stuff is such a valuable utility. It brings the liquidity to something that is e-liquid. So yeah, guys, definitely keep an eye on Ninja Blaze. It's going to be a little bit of a slower play, but don't sleep. The next thing that I want to bring up briefly is Neptune Finance. They only have about $3 million worth of TVL for their lending and borrowing. And I think one of the reasons for that is their borrow/lending APY is a little bit lower. So you're not getting a huge yield on actually lending out your different assets, but you are accumulating their points, which are going to be directly tied to their future token. So definitely have this one on your radar. I might be taking some of the money that I'm going to pull from Hydro Finance when this points farming ends, and maybe I'll put it into Neptune and start farming this a little bit. Another thing to note is if you want to basically leverage yourself even more, you can actually lend out your Injective and then borrow against your own collateral, and you can get a much more exposed or leveraged position for a very low cost right now. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover with the Injective side of things. When it comes to Celestia, the big thing I'm doing is just the Stride airdrop. Once again, I made a video on this in the past comparing Stride with Milky Way, which is the two liquid staking protocols for Celestia. And right now, I still think Stride is the most profitable thing to do with your TIA right now. The reason I hold TIA is in order to qualify for airdrops, and we have seen a precedent set from Altlayer and from other protocols now to actually giving these airdrops to liquid staking platforms. So right now, you're able to get 13-14% APR on your actual TIA staking. You can have it completely liquid, and then on top of that, you're going to be able to get these STRD tokens, which are going for about $4.50 right now. There's still another $17 million worth of these tokens that have to go out. You're not going to get these tokens for about another 5 months, so just realize you're not getting these tokens right away, and the price of Stride can go up or down in the meantime. But right now, the APR is still a relatively high number, and it's probably the most profitable thing you can do with your TIA, as long as, once again, you're actually getting those different airdrops. And you can see here, there's about 3 million TIA TIA that is currently on here, and it's being split with a pro rata between everyone that has deposited their TIA. I did also want to bring up Dimension just because we got a Dimension airdrop for all the Celestia holders out there recently. And speaking of airdrops, I think Dimension is going to get an airdrop pretty soon here from Avail. Now, Avail is very similar to what Celestia is doing, and they've been making all these announcements that they're about to put all their cards out, and I do think they are going to announce an airdrop to Dimension holders. And there was actually a leak showing that Dimension did a snapshot on the 23rd. So I'm expecting this airdrop to be any day now, and if you haven't already, make sure you're doing their different governance votes whenever they have a different live proposal. A lot of these only have a 1-week time period in order for you to vote for them, and sometimes these airdrops can be restricted to people that are actively participating in their governance. So if you have Dimension and you're staking your Dimension, make sure you do this. Now, outside of that, my main strategy with getting this airdrop is I'll probably sell that Avail depending on where it goes if we do in fact get this airdrop, and then I'll probably unstake a portion of my Dimension. I think Dimension has a lot of potential, but I still think it's very early, and there aren't that many major projects on my radar other than Avail that is going to have an airdrop for Dimension. So it's one of those things where I'm probably going to take this Avail, sell it, make my profit on that, unstake a portion of my Dimension, and then probably sell that portion, and then the rest of it I'll hold for a year because the emissions are very low until next year. The next thing I want to bring up is Berachain, and the reason I'm bringing up Berachain is because there are a lot of new DeFi and NFT projects that are starting to launch on the Berachain network, and there's a ton of opportunities to get into some of these projects early in order to get their airdrops or just NFT whitelist. If you go to their main Twitter, you'll notice that they've been mentioning a lot of these different projects that are building, but I'm going to make a separate video that goes over some of these projects that I think you guys need to have on your radar, and I'll give you a little bit more of a compressed information so you're not constantly scrolling through this. I still think Berachain has a lot of potential when it first releases, and I recommend checking out my Berachain video because I think there's going to be a lot of liquidity that flows in at least at the start, and based on their proof of liquidity concept, I think there's going to be a lot more DeFi movement than some of these other protocols that have released, and not that many people will actually operate on the chain. So keep it on your radar. And to give you guys an example, Hungry Bera is an NFT project that just released. They actually released their NFT on Arbitrum, but their utility is going to be for Berachain. And this was an NFT that had costed with an OG or with a whitelist only $200. And within a day, it went from $200 all the way to $500. So you had a 2.5x and you were able to mint 2 of these. So for $400, you were able to get $1,000 worth of NFTs and make a $600 profit. And you are easily able to do that as long as you got a whitelist to Ramen Finance, which is the project that's launching this. So definitely pay attention. I think there's going to be even more opportunities, and Berachain is one of those blockchains that are on my radar. Next thing here that I'm going to make another video on, so I don't want to go too in depth, is Blast. Now there's a lot of different videos covering Blast, and that's because their mainnet is about to go live any day now. I think it's sometime this week it's supposed to go fully live, and within that you have a ton of different projects that are building that are getting an allocation of these actual Blast tokens, and there's going to be opportunities for you to mess around on these different protocols, potentially get an airdrop from those protocols, and potentially earn Blast tokens as well. Now I'll have this link in the description for you guys to look at their 47 winners of their Big Bang contest, and these are all projects that have been building on their network and are going to be on Blast. And once again, those projects have the potential of you being able to earn even additional yields just by getting into them early. I'll have a video coming out soon covering some of the top ones that I think you guys should be paying attention to, so make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. The next ecosystem I want to cover here is Bitcoin. Now Bitcoin is an ecosystem that I've been paying so much more attention to, especially after having a conversation with one of our holders about it a week or two ago in Bangkok, where he was kind of teaching me some of the different intricacies of what's going on. Now I think Bitcoin has been plagued with just a lack of adoption on their whole entire DeFi crazy scene with ordinals and BRC20 tokens on all this stuff, simply because there has been a learning hurdle in order to get into some of these different opportunities. But over time, it's become increasingly easier, and we're seeing more and more centralized exchanges as well as major players such as Binance start to back a lot of things happening in Bitcoin. And I can't help but feel that this ecosystem is just getting started still. Now, we all know Bitcoin's halving is going to happen in April, but another thing to note is that there's a thing called a Nakamoto upgrade upgrade that is happening with the Stacks layer. Now, Stacks is an L2 of Bitcoin, and this Nakamoto release is going to heavily improve the overall user experience when it comes to using Stacks, and it's going to make the transactions a lot quicker. And because of that, I am paying attention to a lot of things happening on Stacks just because it's the 25th largest token, and there's a lot of investment and a lot of eyes on it, and they've been building for years, and the SEC in the US already gave them a thumbs up. Now, I think this upgrade paired with the Bitcoin halving, paired with a lot more people getting into the Bitcoin ecosystem, is going to have a positive impact on Stacks. The issue is that Stacks has already gone on a big run, so I'm looking into getting things a step below Stacks. Now, Alex Labs is one of those projects that is like the main DEX and launchpad for the whole entire Stacks ecosystem, but one of the things that I'm also interested in is their actual Welsh Corgi coin, which I've brought up in the past. Now, Welsh Corgi coin is claiming to be the first Bitcoin meme coin, and this is partly true because all of the transactions on Stacks are actually settling on Bitcoin. But be aware that this coin is built on the Stacks layer itself and not technically built on the layer 1 of Bitcoin. Regardless of that, though, they've been around for a few full years. On top of that, their dev has a very negligible amount of tokens. The community has really rallied behind this token. There aren't any more tokens that are going to be coming out, and I think it's one of those things where the Bitcoin ecosystem is so complex that there may be individuals that are looking at Bitcoin, want exposure to it, might have missed out on Stacks, for example, and now they're going to be looking for something a little bit more risky. And maybe they go to all these different L2s that are starting to come out, or maybe they say, hey, Stacks is actually the best L2 that we have right now, and they're doing things a lot differently rather than just having EVM compatibility and having like a side chain like a lot of these other layer 2s. And potentially they might be looking at Alex, or they might be looking at Dyko, or they might be looking at Welsh, or they might be looking at even Welsh's younger brother, Leo, which is the second largest meme coin on Stacks. Regardless of all that whole background, Welsh is currently sitting at a $66 million market cap. It has gone on a massive run over the past month, and I think it's one of those plays that if you're willing to hold this for the longer term, it can either be like a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x coin, or it could absolutely do nothing and go to zero. So it's one of those massive wins or big losses if it doesn't pick up. But once again, I think there'll be more traction on Bitcoin and Stacks than this whole entire ecosystem. So it's worth having on your radar. And I think that narrative is really strong, and a lot of people will be able to relate to it rather than all these different complexities happening on Bitcoin right now. Speaking of the different L2s as well, I had made a video on Merlin Chain in the past. I'm still farming these different points on Merlin Chain, but a lot more money has been added, a lot more TVL, which means you're not going to be getting nearly as many points. So if you don't have a ton of money, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this anymore, but I wanted to bring this up to let you guys know that I'm still farming this, and I believe we'll get our tokens sometime in the next month, and there might even be a buying opportunity. But once again, there's so many different L2s coming out. I don't know how well Merlin Chain is going to do in the long run, and it doesn't seem like they're doing anything too special from what I could tell. The next category that I wanted to cover is Cardano. Now, Cardano is actually where our main alpha group is located, but the Cardano ecosystem has been a lot slower as of recently, and there haven't been as many plays coming out. We did just have Butane released 2 days ago, and over 50 million ADA was sent in for a 9 million ADA pro rata sale. So this is absolutely insane. This is actually the biggest raise I've seen any Cardano project do, and I'm surprised with how much pain or how much sell-off there's been with all these different Cardano NFTs and DeFi projects, and then 50 million ADA gets sent into Butane. Regardless, for Butane, I did buy in. I did a quick flip on it. I actually have a private sale allocation that is vested over a period of time, and I'm going to be buying some of that and holding some of that. But yeah, Butane was a quick play for me, at least with this initial buy, and then we'll see how well they do in the long term for their synthetics protocol. If they can actually fix the stablecoin issue on Cardano, then I think these guys have a ton of potential. So I'll be keeping my eye out on how much TVL ends up going into their platform. As far as 2 other plays coming up on Cardano, or at least potential plays to have on your radar, especially if you're new to the Cardano ecosystem, we actually have Levvy, which is a borrowing and lending protocol for both NFTs and fungible tokens. They announced that they're actually going to be having a token for their platform. Now, we don't know the public sale details yet, but once we have those details, we'll make a play on that. So once again, join our Discord for free, so you can check that out once we post it. The next Cardano DeFi project to keep an eye out as well is called Splash Protocol, and they are an upcoming decentralized exchange, but they are doing things a lot differently to make their transactions a lot faster. And this is one of those teams that really know what they're doing. So at least have this on your radar. Supposedly the sale that they're going to have in the future isn't going to be a bad circulating market cap or FDV. So yeah, I'll have this on my radar, and I think you guys should too. As far as some last minute miscellaneous stuff, Whales market, I had mentioned in a previous video. When I mentioned it, I think it was at like $1 or something, and then it went all the way down to like $2 out of nowhere, and now it's all the way back up to $4. I have no idea, guys. I said in that video that I'm on the sidelines, but this could be a potential gem. It's only around a $61 million market cap overall. Tokenomics look pretty solid. There aren't too many emissions, and their Whales token is directly tied to their platform success, and their platform has been having so much success, especially with their pre-market. So this could be a potential gem, but like I said, I'm not personally in it. I have it on my watch list. I'm going to be paying attention to it simply because I see the potential in what they're doing, and there aren't too many large competitors to this either. So maybe I'll scoop some up sometime in the near future. It's just so damn volatile. I haven't really wanted to touch it. The last two notes I want to bring up based on the last market update video was I was in Manta Network as well as Altlayer. Now for Altlayer, I said anything below 50 cents was a buy in my opinion. It was actually hovering around 30 to 40 cents for the longest time, and then they got an investment from a couple major VCs that pumped it all the way up to about 55, 56 cents. Now it's back down to around that 50-cent level, and I don't necessarily recommend going and buying this right now because that was kind of my top of where I wanted to get it, but I've just been holding ever since 30 cents, and I'm going to continue to hold until maybe June or July when the VCs start getting some of those tokens, and depending on what I see over the next couple months will determine whether or not I want to keep holding this token for the longer term. There's also Manta Network. I talked about Manta Network in the past and how I was holding and waiting to maybe get some airdrops. I've since sold off my Manta, maybe around like $3.20, something around there, just because there's so many different L2s coming out in the near future, and I'm worried there's just not enough liquidity to go around to all these different layer 2s, and a lot of them are just going to bubble and pop. So I more so would rather get in early, maybe farm stuff for the first week or two, maybe even 3 weeks, but tops 1 month, and then start cycling that liquidity over into new chains that are releasing and cashing in on those opportunities simply from being early, such as Berachain or even Blast that's about to release as well. Whether or not Manta succeeds in the long term, I have no idea. I just know a lot of them aren't going to succeed, and there's going to be a huge competition with which networks are going to get the most traction. But yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps up the video. Once again, if you want to stay up to date on a lot of these different plays and opportunities and be on top of all of these other chains, you're definitely going to need to be part of some sort of group that can help you maintain all of that. So once again, in the description, you'll see the Block Investment Group Discord. Join the block, open up a support ticket, say you'd like to have a trial pass, we'll hook you up. But yeah, that wraps up the video, and I'll catch y'all later.